The relationship between the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, could best be described as two elephants with battle for supremacy.
You can say that again. The long-standing feud is indeed one for concern because since 2009, both parties have been at loggerheads over an agreement of better funding, preferred payment platforms, condition of service, revitalization of public universities, as well as institutional autonomy.
But 15 years on, unfulfilled promises and a common ground for compromise appears elusive, and what follows incessant strikes that cause a disruption to academic sessions.
Quite challenging times for Nigerian public universities, studies, and of course parents, students and parents, and for them it's been a journey of uncertainty and frustration resulting from negotiations that are stalemated.
Well, Jumai, that story is about to change with recent events. The long-standing dispute may well be history very soon, as the federal government and ASUU signed a renegotiated agreement to strengthen tertiary institutions.
Honestly, Ogademola, it's a breath of fresh air, considering the last renegotiated agreement that was in 2017. And so far, many education watchers, to them, it's been a long time coming.
It's really a long time coming, Jumai. Of course, this signals a new beginning. And by the words of the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, the agreement is a reflection of President Bola Tinubu's commitment to accessible, quality, and uninterrupted academic calendars.
And on Good Morning Nigeria.
And yes. On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall examine the unveiling of the renegotiated agreement between the federal government and ASUU, the expected dividends and projections. I am Ademola Adeoye.
It is good news indeed to parents and students, and hopes are high that the agreement will be a turning point in restoring stability, trust, and equality in Nigeria's tertiary education system. All things being equal, one of the key provisions of the agreement is the review of the remuneration package as approved by the National Salaries, Income and Wages Commission, taking effect from January 1st, 2026.
That's good news.
That's good news indeed. I am Juma Yusuf. We're reaching you live from the nation's capital on the network service of the NTA, the first for the week. And in a moment, we'll bring you the highlights of the morning news, and much later, newspaper review.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Just before we bring in our panel of guests for our conversation this morning on federal government and ASUU agreement, let's take this background report by Timothy Yusuf.
The federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities have signed a new agreement aimed at improving the quality of university education and ensuring stability in the sector. From reports, key highlights of the agreement include 40% salary increase, whereby academic staff will receive a 40% salary increase effective January 1, 2026. For professorial cadre, the allowance is another key highlight. Here, professors will receive an additional 140,000 naira monthly allowance, while readers will get 70,000 naira. The agreement also highlights consolidated academic tools allowance. This allowance will support journal publications, conference participation, internet access, and book development. Autonomy is also in the agreement, and it guarantees academic freedom. Research funding also gets key priority, as government has proposed allocating at least 1% of GDP to research and development. Experts say the agreement is expected to end decades of disruptions in federal universities and restore stability to the academic calendar. ASUU has expressed optimism that the government will implement the agreement faithfully. For more about the implementation timeline or the impact of this agreement on students and others, over now to our guests in the studio.
You're welcome back, and you're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and thank you, Timothy Yusuf, for that background report. And we have here in the studio our guests who are seated here now, and let me first introduce in the studio Comrade Isa Aremu, MNI. He's the DG, Michael Imodu, National Institute of Labor Studies. Thank you so much. Happy New Year. It's good to see you.
Same to you.
Not seen you in a decade.
And yeah, Happy New Year. And through you, Happy New Year to all Nigerians. It's a pleasure.
And we also have here in the studio Professor Andrew Haruna, Secretary General Committee of Vice Chancellors of Nigerian Universities and President, Nigerian Academy of Letters. It's good to have you join us as always.
Good morning, Jumai. Good morning, Ademola. Good morning, Nigerians. Happy New Year to all of us.
All right.
Thank you.
And joining us now from Jos Studio is Professor Christopher Piwuna. Professor Piwuna is the President, Academic Staff Union of Nigeria, ASUU. Prof, it's good to have you join us. Good morning. Okay. If you can hear me, yes, I would like to, because stakeholders in the education sector said that the agreement is expected to put an end to decades of disruption in our university, Nigerian university, at least public universities, and improve the quality of education. Can you tell us the provisions of this agreement between ASUU and federal government?
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, and also thank you for having me on this program. Like you rightly pointed out, we had an agreement with government. We signed the agreement about a month ago, 23rd of December 2025. The agreement has about 6 chapters. It includes issues that covers our conditions of service. There is a salary component to it, and then there is a non-salary component to it. The non-salary component include things like our life insurance, annual leave, health insurance for staff, sabbatical leave, and things like that. And then we also have another aspect of the agreement that covers funding. Over the years, Professor Andrew Aruna is there as a former Vice Chancellor and currently the Secretary General of Committee of Vice Chancellors. He's aware, as other Nigerians, that funding has been a very serious issue for Nigerian universities. And so we discovered that the envelope budgeting system currently in place do not address the needs of Nigerian universities. We also acknowledge the multifaceted leakages in revenue in the country as a whole. And so that too has an effect on how our universities are funded. And so in this agreement regarding funding, we have advocated for a need-based budgeting system. It's part of the agreement now. And so you get what you really need, in terms of funding. So you don't get funded for programs or items that you really do not need in that university, which is what is currently obtainable. We also have covered in this agreement issues of autonomy and academic freedom. Over the years, but even with this current government, we have observed that there have been a lot of breaches in our autonomy. The government has meddled in a lot of things concerning governance of our universities. This current government dissolved councils, and it took them over a year to reconstitute those councils. That shouldn't be the case. That has had, very profound impact on how our universities have been run over time. And when they constituted the councils, we had misfits, I'm sorry to use that word, but people that have no business being in the governing councils of our universities. They were made either chairmen or members of those councils. This same government has realized that because they have removed certain pro-chancellors, which confirms what I said earlier on. We still have pro-chancellors today. Some of them, we have excellent people as pro-chancellors in this current setting. But we have people that have no business being in the councils of universities, talk less of being pro-chancellors. Just recently, we had a report from FUTMINA about how that council is meddling into everyday activities of the universities. Things that university management or administration should manage is what the pro-chancellor wants to come and do. We have many examples, and we're getting reports from our branches, and we would make that report available to the government, as time goes on. The issue of academic freedom, that has not truly been an issue for us in Nigeria. I mean, since the coming of the civilian administration. But it is something that needs eternal vigilance. And so it is still there in our agreement. As part of the funding, before I forget, we have introduced a new, it's entirely new, the issue of National Research Council into the agreement. Once government makes available 1% of the GDP towards research, it has so many levels. In this agreement, some of our universities will be upgraded to just research universities. In this agreement, as a result of this research funding that has been made available in this agreement, we're going, every PhD holder in Nigerian universities will receive a grant to train a PhD, a fellow, that has, focus on an area that is of national priority. So it's not just because you have a PhD, you're going to have a grant, but you must identify an area that is of national priority, and then you will get a grant. It's all part of this agreement that we've reached with government. We also address some other issues in the agreement. Part of the things we address include, governance issues in the universities, how HODs are appointed. Now, the previous agreement in 2009, we can elect just the deans of our faculties. But in this agreement, deans will be elected, deputy deans, sub-deans will be elected, deans of postgraduate schools or colleges, provosts, whatever name they go by, would also be elected. We have issues about how sabbatical leave can be sponsored, from the host institution and then the originating institution. All these things are captured. But at the end of this agreement, we also have a chapter dedicated to how the agreement will be implemented, sort of monitoring and evaluation, So we have a team that is going to be coordinated by the Executive Secretary of the National Universities Commission, currently Professor Ribadu, who has played a very significant role, really, in ensuring that we get to this point. Basically, That's what this agreement, I might have missed some of the details, but that's what the agreement is all about.
Some points there. I term it as a Christmas and New Year gift to our university community, and you've signed several agreements. When I say you, I mean ASUU, with government since 2009, and most of them later collapsed. So why should Nigerians, sort of believe that this one will be different, that this one is a sure banker and there's no going back on that? Because this is a game of give and take. We would also like to know, how did ASUU compromise on any of the long-standing demands that you have to secure this deal? And if so, what exactly did ASUU concede? You've reeled out what you got. So what did you concede to get this agreement?
Well, as you are aware, this is a journey that should have started in 2012, that finally started in 2017. Within this period, we have suffered untold hardship as individuals, as lecturers, and as universities. We have lost quite a lot. Imagine that this agreement was concluded in 2017 and had been reviewed in 2020 and again reviewed in 2023. You can imagine the quantum of, success, the dividends that would have come to our universities. So in terms of what have we conceded, I mean, there are so many things that we would have had that we have actually lost within the way. But when we started this agreement and the issues came up, the 40% increase that you're talking about, that wasn't what we wanted. That wasn't what we deserved. That is not our value. We deserve much more than that. And the government acknowledged it and said, yes, you deserve much more, but this is how far we can go. And so in making concessions, I would rather use the word concessions than compromise, but we've made quite a lot in terms of what our earnings would be. In terms of what the universities need and what we are being given, you know that our target was the UNESCO target of 26% budgeting for education. We didn't get that, but we settled for 15%. And even the 15% that we settled for, we are not asking for it immediately. We understand that government may find it difficult to immediately, transit to 15% budgetary allocation to the sector. And so we agreed in the 2025 agreement that government will make a 2.5 increase every year in the budget until we get to a target of 15%. That is another major concession that we made. I talked about non-salary components of our conditions of service. Our national health insurance, our group life insurance, and some other items in the non-salary component. There were concessions that we made in that regard. Even the renewal of the agreement, because of how fast and unreliable the economy is, the changes, how the suffering by Nigerians, the hardship that we go through. This renewal of the agreement every 3 years was not what we wanted. We wanted the agreement to reflect every change in our economy. That we didn't get. It was another concession that we made during the agreement. We wanted to tie our salaries to any change in the economy. That also was not possible. So there were a lot of things that we considered, and that is in addition to what we think our institutions should benefit. The decay in infrastructure, the need to reverse, the downward decline and attract foreign scholars into our system. Some of these things are not still where they are. Our infrastructure, if you go to any university today and you enter our hostels, for instance, it's not what it's supposed to be at all. It's nothing near what we need to have. So there is a dearth of facilities, but we believe that, with time, and if government is sincere and consistent in implementing this agreement, it would have moved the needle. And we probably, in the next 3 years, when we come again to review this agreement, will be better off.
And a lot of stakeholders have actually commended ASUU for considered a lot so that our educational sector can actually move forward. You have to consider, you have to let go and take and, give and take. That's the basis of it. Let's come back to the studio now. We'll get back to you at the course of the conversation. Comrade Isa Aremu MNI, you have listened to the key, provisions that the ASUU president has highlighted there, and the issues over the years have always been the issue of trust. Between the two parties. Would there be trust? Would government be able to, fulfill, the agreement terms and all that? So, what do you think? How will government ensure that the agreement is fully implemented as promised?
Well, thank you so much, Demola. It's a pleasure to be part of this conversation of what is certainly an historic agreement between the federal government and ASUU. And it was the late legendary Nelson Mandela who popularized the phrase, long road to freedom. I think it has been a long road to this agreement. And as somebody who has been a labor organizer, union organizer, who has been party to many agreements, in hundreds, both at the plant level, national level, internationally, I think I want to say that this is one of the best agreements that we can refer to in the field of industrial relations. And I want to congratulate the current president of ASUU, Professor Chris Piwuna, who has spoken, with us from Jos, for making this a reality. And I was checking the record. When I say long road to this agreement, I don't know what benchmark you want to use. If you take 2009, that's effectively 16 years, thereabouts. You also take the date when negotiations started for this agreement. I think 2017, I had Chris.
2017.
That gives effectively 8 years, effectively. Even Chris, Professor Chris, very good job. I was counting from 2009, how many ASUU presidents, have been elected and gone without this agreement. I know my dear friend, Professor Awuse, because that time, 2009 agreement, Comrade Adams Oshomole was then the governor of Edo, but the late President Yaradua called him to midwife the process to get our agreement done. After Awuse, I think we've gotten Issa Fage, we've gotten Professor Ademola, the immediate past one, also Doke, very well. So almost about this process at least about 5 ASUU presidents. Of course, if you also take the benchmark of the ministers, I think it was Samegu that was there that time. Then you have Wilson Woke. He used to be a supervisory minister in education. You have Adamu. You have Tahir. So I think one has to also salute Dr. Maruf Alausa, that during his tenure, we're having this as a reality. So what I'm trying to say here is that as an institute that's supposed to promote labor education, MINELS in Ilorin, this agreement is a case study for study in terms of what collective agreement could be. If you do proper SWOT analysis of this agreement, I think the strength first is that it's taking place under the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and I mean this, it's evidence-based. He has been very intentional, deliberate to prioritize labor. He was only, as a candidate during the run-up to the election 2022, 2023, it was only his Presidential Campaign Council that has a whole directorate, devoted to labor issues. He engaged labor, and he promised to prioritize labor issues. He will, in fact, on the university, he made it emphatically that he wanted to have fair way to strikes. I think this agreement gives us the leeway for us to properly implement it the next 3 years before it's reviewed. And again, I want to salute ASUU for putting the time limit, because one of the bane of agreement is that when you have an agreement that is not clear, what's the tenor? And it doesn't make sense. So this one, I said, the next 3 years will be open to review. So I think that will also address the issue of implementation. Yes. Because if you have to tenor it very well. And I listened to him, there's also a joint committee now, to work towards the implementation. Okay. And I think as much as possible, the same trust, because the strength of collective bargaining, and I think this is very, very important. We're also celebrating vibrant workplace democracy in Nigeria. Nigeria has been a member of ILO from independence, and we signed on to Convention 78, which deals with collective bargaining. We've domesticated it, and now I'm happy that it has become a reality. So that you negotiate, you bargain. So the same spirit with which we negotiate is the same way we have to implement. I listened to Chris very well. The concession, not compromise.
Not compromise.
But they should salute themselves. 40% increase in nominal terms. That's quite significant because it's above the inflation rate. I mean, any figure you use, there's a lot of debate about inflation now. 13%, even those who are talking about 20%, I mean, 40% salary increase is quite significant. Even though if it had been done before, maybe possibly the value for it will be far more significant. So what I'm saying in summary is that the real challenge will be to make it a reality. But I've amplified the strength. I was just speaking with Professor Haruna, the Secretary of NUC outside here, and I asked him, I said, okay, you have an agreement with ASUU that covers federal universities. And I asked him, what happens to the state universities?
National.
And they're in good number. In fact, they are more than
the federal
university. Prof, we have for the data, but I think possibly about 78 private. Well, for private universities, we don't even have the presence. Now, I'm saying that one possible challenge, the threat will be those that are not part of this negotiation.
It's the state governors implementation.
Yes, and also even within the universities. And here I'm just talking as a scholar of industrial relations, DG of MINELS. You also know that there are other unions in the education sector.
Yeah, there are.
You have CON1, for instance, which is not on the negotiating table for whatever reason. And you know the vicious circle. After the academic, non-academic will rise up. SANU, I think, Professor, I don't know, you should be used to this tradition. So we have to factor that, because that will also be possible. But on the whole, I think I want to salute all the actors in this business, in particular also my ministry, Ministry of Labour. The two ministers have been party to midwife this agreement very well.
And the concessions, of
yes,
course.
and I think for implementation, we should also make the committee much more inclusive. Just the same way we've got the agreement done.
Yes,
Thank you.
you raised a point. You raised some fundamental points, Comrade Aramo, especially other unions, in the university, because ASUU cannot operate in isolation. Actually.
Absolutely.
So let's bring in Professor Andrew Haruna into this conversation. You've been everywhere. You've been a lecturer. You've been a vice chancellor. You've been to other universities around the world. You've seen how it operates. Now, is the ASUU FG agreement fundamentally about welfare, or does it genuinely begin to address the quality and competitiveness of Nigerian universities here?
Well, there is a saying in Hausa, I will translate it into English. Talauci, iko gareshi. Poverty
has power.
Okay, if your stomach is not well catered for, you don't even reason well. So I think now ASUU has conceded and they have gotten something. But we must also realize that the whole thing about the agreement is not monetizing the welfare of ASUU or trying to put a price tag on lecturers. We've got to understand that. So, secondly, with this kind of an agreement, unions are there. It is only in the university you have about 6 different unions, professional unions. And we have our own culture. He made reference of, if you want to have good governance in the university, you must have people who really understand university culture. If you don't understand university culture, you will see the workers there as being stubborn. And university is not like that. We are trained to question every little thing put across to us. If I ask my student, can you do this? He will turn around and look at me, why? And I have to give him a reason. So if you don't have people with this open mind, broad mind to understand this, it's a problem. So with unions also, you see, if when you look at this agreement, ASUU was not comparing themselves with anybody. ASUU is simply saying, we are lecturers, this is what we deserve, and this is how we should be treated. So if any union wants to come up with an argument, let them also put up an argument. For example, if a medical doctor receives a call's allowances, I'm not a medical doctor, why should I compare myself with him? Now, I supervise a PhD. You don't supervise a PhD, why do you want to claim allowances for a PhD supervision? I do field work, and you don't do that. So we have to understand those things. You made mention this about this agreement. I look at it critically. You know, not to be proud. You mentioned I have been everywhere. I am a pro-chancellor of a university.
Yes.
So apart from being a vice-chancellor, I'm currently a pro-chancellor.
Pro-chancellor.
Good. I'm president of Academy of Letters. So I don't know anything but dealing with professors. You know, dealing with professors. And these are my colleagues. So every day I learn something new. But the crux of the matter is, you must understand that ASUU does not make comparisons.
Okay.
They does not make comparisons. They put value on themselves and say, take it. And if you as an administrator try to do something different, you will have problem with them. Secondly, unions within the university, they are also stakeholders. You see, in the university we have many capital investments. We have human resource. Okay, in this we have the lecturers, faculty, staff, we have students, we have the non-teaching staff. There it is not, this is better, that one is better. We all complement each other. If one does not work, the system doesn't flow. Okay, so all of us are important, but we must be very mindful to understand what are we there for, so that we can help ourselves and also help government. One thing which I don't know if I could talk about, he mentioned private universities or state universities.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this agreement signed by government, federal government, there are about 76 federal universities. We call them public universities. There are also over 65 state universities, also funded by the state, by taxpayers' money. There are almost 160 private universities. So the private universities almost double the public universities. And there is no professor for private, professor for state, professor for federal. Definitely, if ASUU sneezes, you know, the other catches cold. So I'm waiting to see what happens, because this agreement was done last week. But we must know the visitors of the various universities. For federal, it's Mr. President. For state, the various state governors. And there I caution, I have seen a lot of instability in the state universities because many of the state governors have politicized vice chancellors. A former regime appoints a VC, a new governor comes, he said he doesn't belong to us, you remove him. You see, we don't appoint vice chancellors by political fiat.
That's why he talked about the issue of autonomy, which government has agreed to in this agreement.
I wish they will implement it. Even the federal government, you know, when you talk of autonomy, I don't think any university administrator will say the government is doing well. Because every day you get circulars coming from the ministry to vice chancellors. When you already have pro-chancellors, who are the managers of the university? And the pro-chancellors are being pushed from what is stated in the law and what the kind of circulars they get from government. But thank God, the current chairman or the chairman who midwifed this agreement knows everything about government machinery. That's Yayale. And if government does not respect what this elder statesman has actually midwifed, I think at the end of the day I will say, with due respect, deliberately we are eliminating our living ancestors. Because this man knows government very well.
So what do you think should be done, at least for us to, for government to be able to implement all these agreements?
Well, just government be sincere.
Yeah.
Let government be sincere.
The issue of trust now has been the bone of contention over the years.
Yes. Or I think I tell you, many Nigerians have lost confidence in governments. Not this government in the past. And again, they are suspicious of the current government. But there are certain indices. In the university, some few days I talk about NEL fund, and I talk about trust. This is one area. You see, the current administration is proving to Nigerians that we have signed a contract and we are involved in your life and we really want to carry it through. I'm very, very much satisfied with that. Again, there's another social contract. Now, issues of professors. This may not have been highlighted.
Yeah.
But you see, professors, when they retire, they start to get their pension. And it is this current administration that has really tried to see that this flows.
Yeah.
It is not perfect, but very, very much different than all what has happened in the past. So in the university sector, you see, whether I like it or not, whether somebody likes it or not, we must commend the government on NEL fund. We must commend the government on the retirement benefits of professors and workers in my constituency. Now, the third one where I would like to commend government is signing this agreement, but it is too early for me to make a judgment. And we don't make judgment, we take a study, we look at it and see how it is run.
Will this agreement help to check the challenge of brain drain in the education sector?
Well, I think if we are to receive the first salary this month, okay, so I'm still waiting. I have not heard of any professor who has received his salary. The agreement begins in January.
Yeah.
So if we are having this interview in February, I would say maybe, but we must be very mindful. Even with this increase in the Nigerian factor, might think that it is something good, but it may not. First, the environment is not conducive. The lecture halls, the classrooms, the laboratories, the offices of the lecturers, the general university environment, the hostels, these kind of things which I have mentioned, no matter the quantum sum of money you put in the pockets of the lecturers, you have created the lecturers to become truants and also the students. because they don't have a nice place to stay. If I don't have a nice office, definitely I won't stay in that office. I'll be somewhere else, no matter the money in my pocket.
Indeed, it is not
Anyway,
it is not Uhuru yet.
It's
That's
work
what
in
you're
progress.
saying. Unless we collect the first salary, so we'll come and collect our commission too on that.
You meet Fiona by that time.
Yes, let's bring in Professor Fiona into this conversation. He's the President Academic Staff Union of Universities. The 40% salary increase that sort of sounds very significant, but unfortunately, inflation has eroded wages in Nigeria. So in real terms, are lecturers actually better off? That's my first question. And how will ASUU, sort of ensure that restructured allowances don't become another opaque system prone to abuse like we've seen in the past?
Thank you very much. I was actually interested in what Comrade Aremu was going to say about the other unions on campus. I was really interested in knowing, but he seemed to have asked a question instead. He talked about the other unions, SANU, NASU, NAD, even KONWA or NAMDA. We have never had problems with these unions from our end. We've never challenged what government gave them, never. We believe that every union should negotiate for its members, and we encourage it. In fact, we encourage that government, for stability, should hasten the processes of the negotiations with these unions so that everybody will be happy and stability will be ensured within the system. We have a problem with KONWA or NAMDA. There is a concept, Comrade Aremu, I believe, knows about it, of the most representative of unions that are of the same hue. So, KONWA is for academic staff. NAMDA is for academic staff. Which is the most representative? It's an ILO item. It's in the convention. Justice Kantiep, in delivering a judgment that was brought before him by NAMDA, actually spoke about it. And so we believe that vice chancellors must be very careful when it comes to implementing this agreement. We really want them to be careful, because that is where the problem will start. And we are watching. But for all unions, we do not challenge, we do not begrudge, we do not, dislike any union that has been recognized by law. But that concept of the most representative must guide vice chancellors and government. And we have said it publicly and privately, that government, including this government, is actively encouraging dissent, division, and factions amongst us, the academic unions on campus. And I think they need to watch it, because that is where problems could start. As regards state universities, historically, 1992 agreement that was signed by the most venerable Professor Atahiru Jiga, they had in its composition our own site, ASUU. We have members in the team that represented or came from state universities. On the government side, we had members, the Chikwelu, I think, the 1992 agreement, the government side had pro-chancellors of state universities in their site. The 2009 agreement that Comrade Arimu talked about. Professor Awuzie was from a state university, and we had members of our team from state universities. We had vice pro-chancellors appointed by visitors of state universities from states, representing the state interests in the committee. In the same thing with Babalakin, same thing with Musa Ali Jibril, same thing with late Professor Nimi Briggs, same thing with Alhaji Ayale Ahmed. They have pro-chancellors of state universities that represented the interests of state universities in the negotiations, in the collective bargaining process. In our team with Alhaji Ayale Ahmed, we had about 6 or 7 members that were from state universities. Like I said, Alhaji Ayale Ahmed had pro-chancellors from state universities. The issues discussed, the issues that were bargained, are they relevant to state universities? Do state universities need money for research? Do state universities need better funding mechanisms for their universities to function? Do they have governance issues in state universities? The Secretary General of the Committee of Vice Chancellors, Professor Aruna, has mentioned it. I have also mentioned it. We've talked about how appointments are made based on senatorial districts, based on ethnic considerations, religion, party affiliations. These are all issues that are as relevant, even if not even more relevant to state universities than they are to federal universities. So any state governor, any visitor to a state university that behaves as if this agreement does not concern him is at best, with all due respect, an ostrich. He's just not seeing what everyone else is seeing. And so we believe that this agreement affects all of us. All of us. There are some state universities that are doing well. There are some state universities now that are even getting more than the 40% federal government has given. And we commend those state governments, and we encourage that those who have not implemented this agreement or in the past, or who see this agreement as a federal government thing, to reverse and take a look at it again. All these issues are as relevant to state universities as they are to federal universities. How do we go forward? I don't know if that was a question you asked. From this point, we believe that sincerity is key in ensuring that this agreement does not go the way of previous agreements. How do we ensure that is done? Government needs to acknowledge, accept that education is public good. That when you solve the problem in the educational sector, you literally solve the problem of the entire country. Government cannot have answers to all the challenges in the country and address them. But if they give us quality education, it will address most of these problems. Is this agreement going to attract foreign scholars? I don't think so. But there are things that this agreement could do. Like I said, as part of the research funding, every PhD holder in the university is entitled to a grant for as long as you identify an area of national interest. If government implements and makes funds available for that research, it means that we could have postdoctoral students coming from Ghana, coming from the United States, coming from Germany, coming from Uganda to study here. That is a step forward. If government implements this agreement faithfully, there will be stability in the system. If our calendar is stable, Ghanaians will come, Kenyans will come, South Africans will come, other countries of the world will come. That would be the first attraction to our universities. The issue of scholars coming, I said it is unlikely. And it is unlikely because even with the 40% increase given to Nigerian academics, we are still, I'm not saying we are close, we are still the lowest paid in Africa. Check it out. We are still the lowest paid in Africa. Maybe Benin Republic or somewhere are close to us. And so, for someone to say he would leave his country and come to Nigeria, there must be some other attractions, but certainly not the 40% that is available. And what are those other attractions that could bring people here? If we have a very robust research laboratory in our universities, if we have universities that are dedicated to just research, and government can determine how to, upgrade these universities, along with us to research institutions, that could be the other attractions. But for now, I think we are still a long way off from attracting foreign scholars to Nigeria. But like I said, if the system is stable, there will be foreign students that will come in. And the foreign students could be both undergraduate or postgraduate students.
Thank you very much, Prof. If the system is stable, it will also create bring a lot of stability to the country. Thank you.
We need to remind our viewers to send in their comments and views on the topic so that our guests in the studio will be able to respond to them. So we're expecting your views and comments.
Okay, already we have some already, but then they can still send more. Okay, Comrade Aremu, you've listened to the ASUU president and he mentions the other unions, and I know that you will want to respond to some of what he said. And how would you describe ASUU's approach to these various negotiations?
No, I think it's consistent with the spirit of collective bargaining. And once again, I would like to appreciate ASUU. It's not the time I agree with ASUU methods, but on a number of issues, you can't fault ASUU's capacity, the staying power to make case for the revival of the universities. And I don't think there is any dispute. I just raise it deliberately. As a student of industrial relations, that we should anticipate, as we are celebrating the strength of this historic agreement, we should look at the possible threat, for implementation. But honestly speaking, Demola, I have no doubt in my mind that this agreement will be implemented. In any case, the difference between a proposal and an agreement is that agreement has gone through a series of negotiation compromises, concessions, maybe to use the word. Compromise has become a notorious word. I'm very sure, I listened to Chris very well. The proposal will have been 100% for wage increase, and honestly speaking, I've been advocating for that, even on your platform here, that we often talk of ease of doing business. Nobody is talking of ease of work. How does the working man and woman live? You have salaries that cannot take them home. You want lecturers to perform miracles. While with a professor hand less than 1,000, 1 million, 1.5 million, that's the point. But you also know in the spirit of negotiation, it's not what you ask for, it's what is negotiated. Because you must tie down any agreement you have on pay to the state of the economy, to productivity, service delivery, for it to be sustained. So they must have traded also on this.
Availability of funds.
And availability of funds. And I was very, very happy. I think Dr. Alausa made the point. What makes this agreement unique is that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who takes ownership of this negotiation.
Okay.
It's clear. I've told you from my opening remark, President Tinubu has been very intentional, deliberate. If you also look at his record when he was in Lagos, I mean, he used to pay above national minimum wage. He was also committed to education. I mean, look at all the creative ideas that have come beyond TED Fund. We now have NEF Fund, which has impacted to about 1,000. He was also committed to research. I think he facilitated part of this agreement. So there won't be doubt over that. But all we need to do is to jointly get it done, to realize it. And I look at the agreement. I was trying to go through the copy you gave me, Professor Aruna. You know, he's a comrade now by association.
Yeah, of course.
After being Secretary General of Committee of Vice Chancellor, managing crisis. So he gave me a copy, and I went to, and I the methodology. You know, the joint secretariat, you are together with Committee of Vice Chancellor. You have, I mean, you need to check the list. Almost about 20 representatives from federal government and ASUU. So it's been inclusive. All I'm raising is that we should also have the same mindset to include other stakeholders who are not on this negotiating table.
Like students?
Yeah, I mean...
Should they have a formal seat at
yeah,
the
no, they didn't have it. Even parents, you know, they must have their own views also. But that's academic now. We already have an agreement with ASUU. But in implementing, you must also find a way to have that spirit of inclusiveness. And Chris addressed it, you know, that ASUU is not averse to other unions to raise their issues, you know. It's also not adverse to state governors or state government who may be able to, but possibly this like minimum standard, which others can build on. I can end up on this note. I've been involved in national minimum negotiation.
Which negotiation is supposed to start soon?
Yeah, very soon. You know, Juma is waiting for our own.
Of course, I'm waiting.
But you know what I'm saying is that I've been involved in it. We had 6 national minimum wage law now, and we've gone through different circles. But I knew when we were doing the one for 2010 under President Goodluck Jonathan, we had resistance from the governors, you know, and they said, no, you just sit in Abuja, you had an agreement, you know, which covers the most representative stakeholders, to use Chris' word. But we also want to be on the negotiating table. Yes. And we have to make an amendment, you know, the subsequent ones, you know, the one under President Buhari, and even this last one now, governors, it used to be 3, I think there are 6 representatives. So from the one, they own the process. I hope you get the point I'm raising, and then they are clear, you know, but on the whole, what will make this sustainable is that I think we need, you know, we've taken labor market for granted too much.
Too much.
You know, anytime I see Owaleke talking about capital market, money market, fantastic resource fellow, you know, prof, you know, and I say, what of labor market? Because this is the most critical factor of development, human resource. So we must know how to manage it, how to massage. This collective bargaining process is a skill of its own. So which means to implement this agreement, we have to promote knowledge. First, about the agreement among all the key stakeholders. I just shared this with Professor Aruna that my institute will be available, you know, to provide the platform. Assumption that guys, you know, what you call negotiation, the scope of coverage. You know, the clauses that are there. In fact, I think there's one area that, well, if we have been involved properly, I will have talked about reopener clause. Reopener clause means that in case of any circumstances, the things change. The fundamentals, the economy, and even the demand, the plight of lecturers, you can reopen without necessarily going on strike. Are you getting what I'm saying? This is also a technical field, but it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that we must educate people, I mean, all the stakeholders.
Proper education,
yes,
awareness.
And NTA, you know, I don't know what NUC will give you for this platform, because you have created a platform for us to even have an idea of what they agree, but we must take it nitty-gritty, including other unions, other stakeholders who are not on the table. Let them have this clarity, that even though you may not be the most representative, you know, but certain things have affected you in this agreement. If there are other issues, they put on it so that we stop this stopgap. You know, but my real takeaway is that for the first time we have a pause on endless strikes, lockout, no work
No pay.
So
No pay. Don't quote me on that. At least for the next day, we have something to relate to. And that's the bit of
we have a
agreement.
pause on, academic disruption in universities, which has been there for over decades.
And we should celebrate it.
And also we should celebrate it.
Yeah.
And we need a
commendable.
proper education on this new agreement. Okay, we'll pause there. We'll take a break now. When we return, the conversation will continue. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Our conversation is still on federal government and ASUU agreement, and our guests are still here. Already we have some comments and questions from our viewers which would like to read out so that our guests can respond to them. Let me just take mine here before Jumai will read hers. This one says, good morning, panel members. My name is Abbas Abubakar Sahat from Jalingo, Taraba State. I extend my greetings to all distinguished members of the panel. I commend the ASUU leadership for their tireless effort regarding federal government ASUU agreement. Even those who are not part of the university system became weary of hearing about the prolonged federal government ASUU agreement. Most of the demands are not issues that should have taken so long, considering that discussions have been ongoing since 1999. These are the people who run our institutions, therefore they deserve special recognition and respect. This one is, my name is Abdul Salam from Ilori. He said, I just want to commend ASUU and the federal government under the leadership of President Bola Tinubu. However, my major interest in this present agreement has gladdened my heart is the new idea of National Research Fund, particularly with a special focus on promoting national relevant PhD program based on some of my own personal experiences, and as well as most Nigerian scholars who studied abroad, but have had to cope with extra burdens of disposing off some of their personal properties in order to meet the huge foreign cost differentials as occasioned by the huge cost of conducting very landmark and groundbreaking researches with tremendous potentials to promote. Akeju Olagbaju, it says the current administration has done so well to manage industrial dispute between federal government and ASUU, and indeed its approach to labor has been based on collective bargaining and is beneficial to either party. There is trust and zero disruption in our academic environment now. Abdul Razak Abdul Kadri says, good morning, especially NTA team and the distinguished guest. I would like to seek clarification on whether the provisions of this agreement apply solely to university staff or whether they are also implementable in other academic institutions such as polytechnics and colleges of education, particularly the academic staff who equally engage in research, incur cost of publications, pursue continuous professional development to remain competitive and face similar challenges. My special greetings to Comrade Issa Aremu. I trust that he continues to adequately represent and carry along the informal sector in labor-related matters. Okay. Thank you, Abdul. Okay, just maybe don't let us lump them together. I want Prof to respond to some of this and probably talk about the issue of autonomy, but let's have your response to some of this thing.
Well, two key others, I looked at them as comments, but there are issues that were raised about NRF, that's the National Research Fund, which is provided by TED Fund. And that's the kind of research fund which the president of ASUU referred to. I was a member of this National Research Fund. Well, TED Fund provides this money, and they ask the researchers to look at a topic which is of national interest to research on.
Okay.
And to bring inclusivity, not to just be a kind of a narrow way of a personal research, they requested or they required the key investigator to have collaborators from other universities across the country. Okay. So it's not a fund that is given to a professor, a single professor to do a solo research, but rather a collective research. The principal investigator could be in Lagos,
Okay.
and other assistants or other investigators will be Sokoto, Port Harcourt, Uyo, and things like that.
So to be wise.
And then it must address a national need. Issue, yes. But the problem he mentioned, sometimes these researchers are affected by strikes. So if there is a strike, the system stops. And if it stops, especially those who are conducting research in laboratories, then you see inflation takes up the money. TED Fund will write them to finish this program at a particular time, and it's prolonged, and therefore there are challenges of this nature. Now with this agreement, I think this should end.
Okay.
So that's what I can say for now. The issue of universities and polytechnic and colleges of education, we must understand a university is different from a polytechnic. A university is different from a college of education. Now, many pronouncements have been made. Colleges of education have been turned into universities now. What do you do with the staff? The kind of promotion, the requirement we require to be a professor is not the same as you find in the College of Education. And now, are they going to migrate and become professors? If you said no, then why do they call themselves a university? So these are issues to be addressed.
Okay.
I don't have an answer immediately for this, but this is the problem that we will continually face if we don't make a serious study before we convert one institution to another.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Before we go to Professor Piuna, let me take some of the comments that came in too. The first one said, federal government should please honor whatever agreement they had with ASUU to avoid school setback in Nigeria. Didn't put a name. When you send your messages, please attach a name to it. And Eddie wrote in, good morning Nigeria, they should introduce workshop and focus on practical and innovation rather than money. We should also develop this like the Chinese. That's coming from Eddie. And Dr. Nasiru Bello wrote in, said, GMN, I want to know whether the agreement cut across the SANU, NASU, state universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. That's from Dr. Nasiru Bello. I think the ASUU president has sort of responded to that. And another one said, good morning, Dr. Joseph Subero from Okene, Kogi State. He said, please, I would like to know in monetary terms, what level of grant is available for research, conferences, and publications, or is it annually or based on other extraneous factors? Professor Piuna, you listened to the first question that my colleague read out, and I've read out some of this. I would like you to respond to the comments and questions they've raised, our viewers have raised here.
Well, thank you very much. Let's start from the last one. The issue of whether this agreement covers all these other institutions. I think the federal government has set up a committee headed by Alhaji Ali Ahmed too, and he's addressing all those agreements. So they will just wait for their own agreements to come up. Like I said earlier on, one union will not negotiate for another. So theirs is ongoing, and we hope that they will finish as soon as possible. Someone had also asked if how much will go to every PhD grant in the universities. What we have in the agreement are percentages. When it gets to the institutions, that could be sorted out by the individual university administrations. But what we have now is that out of the 1%, whatever sum the 1% of GDP comes to, 70% will go to research and technical education, the sciences in the universities. And that 50% of that would also be used to upgrade facilities, laboratories, so that people don't have to travel out of the country to do their bench work and things like that. All these things will be made available through this research funding that we've been able to agree with government. There is also a percentage that goes to library development, a certain percentage that goes for just hospital research, based research in our universities. There's another percentage that goes into upgrading specific laboratory facilities within the university. So that amount is divided in, is stated in percentages, to institutions. Whatever your percentage translates to, at the university level, I believe vice chancellors will decide with the administration how that would go around. But we do not have a specific amount in terms of figure. It's percentages that we've agreed to with government. I think basically that's what some of them are comments that were made, and we hope that all of us, ASUU and government, are listening to all those comments, and we will take it to heart and ensure that this agreement is operated fully until the.
Now, as we begin to round up now, if this agreement falls like previous ones, I want to ask you, what should change? The negotiation process itself, the funding model, or the role of ASUU itself?
Jumai, he's talking. He's not listening to you.
Negotiation process itself.
Okay, you can ask the question.
So, Piona, you didn't hear me the first time. I want to ask you in just 30 seconds, I would like you to respond to this question. If this agreement fails like previous agreements now, what should change? Is it the negotiation process, the funding model, or the role of ASUU itself?
In 30 seconds.
In 30 seconds, please.
Well, in 30 seconds, if this agreement fails, we have a standard response to such situations in our union. And that is, one, to open discussions with government, to begin to work at things that has caused the failure. If government does not listen, we will engage the public, raise awareness about it, and before we decide on any action. Since I have only 30 seconds, let me just say this. This agreement that we have, we're very happy that we have reached this point. But there are issues that we hope as a union, government has not forgotten, that are still unresolved. We still have 3.5 months of our salaries that are still unpaid from the 2022 agreement. We are appealing to government to kindly look at that and resolve it in the same spirit that this agreement has been reached. We also have our colleagues at the Lagos State University, Kogi State University, and Federal University of Technology, Owerri, who have still been victimized. We hope that government would look at these things and begin to act immediately. We talked about state governments. Kogi is a state government. Lagos State is a state government. These are issues that we believe state governments have a role to ensure that this agreement is not truncated because of lack of action at any level. We believe the Minister of Education will call the Vice Chancellor of the Federal University of Technology, Owerri, and the Pro-Chancellor of that university to order and ensure that they resolve the victimization of our members at FUTO before it also degenerates into something that may just
So much, Professor Christopher Piwuna, President, Academic Staff Union of University. Thank you so much for your contribution, and I believe that government is very much aware of the pending issues, and they will attend to it. Well, let's come back to the studio. As we wind up, Comrade, what parameters, in 30 seconds, should government put in place to measure the success of this agreement? What parameters should be put in place?
It's not the two parties that had the agreement.
Yeah.
It's a spirit to do that the agreement, we should also make it to become a reality. In our survey at the Institute of the Labour Market last year, we discovered that government, with all the limitation of resources, had prioritized labour. First, public jobs are retained. I mean, we didn't have retrenchment. Salaries are paid as and when. We shouldn't take this for granted. There was once in Nigeria in which you had reformed. You remember the one under Obasanjo, retrenchment, downsizing, right? Maintain jobs, salaries are paid. But people too must take it seriously.
Okay.
Am I communicating? And for this program, agreement, very good to be implemented. We must also have the service component, productivity.
Okay, 30,
you know, and ASUU with all the stakeholders, revenues will not come from the sky. It will not be done unless reforms that have been put in place, including the tax reform. You know, we can check and criticize and improve on it, but we can't block it.
Okay, we can't block it. Okay. Comrade Isaremu, MNI DG Michael Imodu, National Institute of Labour Studies. Thank you so much for your input into this conversation. We hope to see you soon. And Professor Andrew Haruna, Secretary General Committee of Vice Chancellors of Nigerian Universities and President, Nigerian Academic of Letters. As always, we appreciate you taking your time to come.
Thank you very much
on this program to explain issues, burning issues in Nigeria. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
And that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thank you so much. We hope you've been enlightened on the IFFG ASUU agreement. But we'll wait to see the implementation of the agreement itself. I am Juma Yusuf. Thanks so much for watching.
Nama Demola, you do have a lovely day.